dear friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel Study with Stanley. Today we are in the first lecture of structure of atom. Before we delve into the main today's content, first you should know what this topic tells to us. So actually in this topic it is of two parts. The first one is structure, the second one is atom. First you should know about atom. The atom in ancient time is considered as an indivisible fundamental particle. Let me write it here. It is indivisible fundamental particle. So actually the word atom is derived from a Greek word atomio. Let me write that also here. The word atom is derived from the Greek word atomio. This word atomio means uncuttable. Which is nothing but it tells us this atom cannot be easily separable. That is what we denoted here. It is indivisible fundamental particle. The idea of atom becomes more clear when Dalton proposed Dalton's theory of atom. Let me write it here. The idea of atom became more clear when Dalton atomic theory is proposed in 1808. In this Dalton's atomic theory, he tells that atom is the fundamental particle. He also considered that atom is a indivisible particle. But he also derived another conclusion, that is atom, I will write it here, atom can neither be created nor be destroyed. I will write it here, atom can neither be created nor be destroyed. So now we have a clear idea about, or the basic idea about, what does this word atom means. And the second word is structure. Here the structure denotes the atom's structure. So there is a famous drawing that you already know, that I am writing it, or I will draw it here. This is a positively charged nucleus and electrons are revolving around it. Electrons are revolving around it. This positively charged core is called the nucleus of atom. I will write it here. This central part is called the nucleus of atom. This nucleus contains two major particles, that is nothing but neutron and proton. Neutron plus proton. This nucleus have a positive charge over it. This positive charge determines how the electron should be arranged around this nucleus. Why? Because this nucleus determines how the electron is freely or tightly bound to it. As you already know, electronegativity, electropositivity, everything is based on how this electron is bounded to this nucleus. If it is tightly bounded, you can't easily remove that electron. Or if it is loosely bounded, you can easily remove the electron. So this positive charge determines how the electron should be arranged around this nucleus. And the second part here we have is electrons. Here I'm writing it here. These are electrons. These electrons have a negative charge within it. This electron is the thing which determines the chemical behavior of the atom. Why? Because these are the particles which take place in movement. So these electrons are the thing which determines the chemical behavior of atom. And another thing you should remember here is this neutron and proton is collectively called as nucleon. Remember, my dear friends, this nucleus contains neutron and proton, and this neutron and proton is collectively called nucleon. I am writing it here in a different color so that you can easily identify it. So my dear friends, after studying the structure of atom, you came to know atom have three fundamental particles. There are nothing but the first one is electron, second is proton, and the third is neutron. So the next part we should know how this electron, proton, and neutron are discovered. Let me erase it here so that we can continue the session. As you already know, the electron is actually denoted in terms of E with a negative sign. I hope you know that. I'll write it here. The first one we are going to study is discovery of electrons. So this electron is the first fundamental particle discovered in atom. I will write it here. This electron is the first fundamental particle which is discovered. This electron is discovered by J.J. Thomson. I will write it in a different color so that you can remember it. This is very important. This electron is discovered by J.J. Thomson in 1897. J.J. Thomson discovered the electron with the basis that is founded by Faraday's. Why? Because Faraday done an experiment that is also an important one mark. I will write it in another color. This discovery of electron is based on the Faraday's experiment that is called Faraday's study of electrical discharge in partially evacuator tube. This partially evacuated tube is also known as cathode ray tube. Cathode ray tube. Why? Because these cathode rays have an electron within it. By J.J. Thomson, he discovered that electrons are present in the cathode rays. Then this tube is actually, it came to known as cathode ray tube. This cathode ray tube is actually a glass tube. Which is connected to oppositely charged electrodes on the end of the tube. They are connected to two oppositely charged electrodes. Let me draw it here, the experimental setup of this cathode ray tube, so that you can easily understand it. My dear friends, this is the experimental setup of cathode ray tube. This glass tube is what we called it as cathode rays, and this glass tube is connected to the negative and positive, that is opposite poles of a battery. Here we have the cathode and we have the anode. Cathode is basically negatively charged and anode is basically positive charge. In this cathode ray tube experiment, J.J. Thomson followed various conditions. There are two major conditions. Let me write it here. That what are they are? Conditions. The gas molecules within this cathode rays is at a very low pressure. The first condition is the gas molecules are at very low pressure, and the second is they have a very high voltage source, high voltage source, that is almost of about 10,000 volts. My dear friends, you may be wondering why he took gas molecules at very low pressure. There is a major reason for that. The reason is at a very low pressure, the distance between the gas molecule is very high. Let me write it here. The reason for having a very low pressure is the distance between gas molecule is very large. So when the gas molecules are at a very large distance and this much of higher voltage is applied to it, these gas molecules ionize and they starts to get accelerate, which means they will vibrate at a very high speed. So when those high voltage is applied, these gas molecules get ionized and they get accelerated. So when they get accelerated, they will hit another molecule or ion and eject electron. I'll write it here. When they get accelerated, they will hit another ion and eject electron and eject electron. So for this reason or for this purpose, J.J. Thomson took the gas molecules at a very low pressure. My dear friends, I hope now you have a clear idea about what does this cathode ray tube arrangement and what are the conditions that J.J. Thomson followed in it. So when these electrons are ejected, they travel from cathode to anode in the form of rays. Why? Because as you already know, electron is having a negative charge and it moves towards the positively charged anode. This movement is in the form of waves. When these waves of particles are moving, the current will flow in the opposite directions. Here, this arrow mark denotes the cathode rays, the direction of the cathode rays. So here, when this particles moves from cathode to anode, that is nothing but the electrons, the current will flow in the opposite direction. Since these rays are travel from cathode to anode, these rays are called as cathode rays. Why? Because this is moving from cathode to anode. This starts from cathode, so we call it as cathode rays. So I hope now we can move to the second part. My dear friends, you may be questioning me how you know that there is some rays passing through that or passing from cathode to anode, and that is what the next thing we are going to study. Let me erase it here so that we can continue the session. As like you are wondering, the scientist Crooke or also get wondered how to find the or the presence of this cathode rays. So he used an experimental setup called Crooke's tube. This experiment is done by Crooke, so that we are calling this as a Crooke's tube experiment. This is done by Crooke. So in this basic cathode ray arrangement, he just perforated the anode. Now these holes are created in the anode, and he placed some phosphorescent materials. I will write it here. He placed some phosphorescent material at the end of this tube. I just highlighting it with the red color so that you can understand it. This red color, the shaded portion, is having some phosphorescent material. After this became, when we had some phosphorescent material, this is called Crooke's tube. When this cathode rays passes through the anode, they will hit with this phosphorescent material. This phosphorescent material, I will write it here. He used phosphorescent materials. The phosphorescent material is nothing but use zinc sulfide. He just perforated the anode material and he allows this cathode rays to pass through the anode and to hit the phosphorescent material, which is nothing but zinc sulfide. When this cathode rays hit this zinc sulfide material, it will produce a green spot in it. Write it here. This green spots are produced when cathode rays hit the phosphorescent zinc sulfide. This green, write it here, this green spots confirm the presence of the cathode rays. So my dear friends, now you can able to understand how they found that there is some rays that is passing through the anode, and that is what we called it as cathode rays. So after this, we are going to study about the characteristics of this cathode rays. Now have a clear idea about how these electrons are, or how this cathode ray tube experiment was done, and how this Crooke's tube experiment was done. Next is characteristics of cathode rays. Write it here. The next one is characteristics of cathode rays. The first characteristics is they travel in straight line. My dear friends, the first characteristics of cathode rays is they travel in a straight line. This can be easily studied by placing a material or a particle in between of it. I write it here. Here we need not have this phosphorescent material. So why? Because this is a basic cathode ray tube experiment to study the characteristics. I am erasing it all. I am placing a particle like a cross in between of this cathode rays. And I am placing this anode in the bottom position. Erase it here also. Now we have this anode here. Write it here. This is anode. When we place some object in between of this cathode rays, what we call the shadow of the particle will be seen on the other side of this tube. This tells us this cathode rays travel in a straight line, so that if we place some object, this will block this cathode ray so that its shadow is visible on the other side of that cathode ray tube. This makes us to understand that these are in straight lines and they are moving in a straight line, so that we have the shadow on the other side. And the second conclusion is, or the second characteristics is, they have mass and velocity. For this experiment or for this characteristics, we placed a paddle wheel in between of this cathode ray tube. I am placing a paddle wheel when this cathode rays moves, this paddle wheel will rotate. This tells us that this cathode rays have some mass and velocity. If they have mass and velocity, then they have a translational kinetic energy. They have mass and velocity, that is, they have kinetic energy, or we can say translational kinetic energy, and that is nothing but E is equal to half mv square. So in the last lecture of gaseous state, I teached you this energy, that is translational kinetic energy, is directly proportional to temperature. So when this energy is increasing, when cathode rays passing from cathode to anode, then ultimately temperature is also increasing. So the third conclusion is they produce heating effect. So my dear friends, now we have studied about three characteristics. The first one is these cathode rays travel in a straight line. The second one is these cathode rays have mass and velocity, that is nothing but they have kinetic energy. and this energy is directly proportional to temperature. So when this energy increases, temperature also increases, so they produce the heating effect. Now we are moving to the fourth characteristics of this cathode rays. The fourth characteristics, when electric and magnetic field are applied to cathode rays, they deviate towards positive charged side. So my dear friends, don't worry, this might be a confusing to you, but I will explain with the diagram so that you can easily understand this characteristics. It is nothing but when electric and magnetic field is applied, these cathode rays will bend towards the positively charged side. I will draw it here so that you can understand it clearly. When electric and magnetic field are applied, it is nothing but I am applying here. This is a negative side, and this is positive side. When electric and magnetic field is applied, I'll write it in a clear manner. This is negative side and this is positive side. When this electric and magnetic field is applied, this cathode rays will bend towards the positive charged side. So this is the conclusion which tells us that cathode rays have something which is negatively charged particle. Why? Because only negative is attracted towards positive. So we came to a conclusion that this cathode rays is made up of some negatively charged particles. I hope now you can understand this cathode rays is deviate towards the positive charge side, so that we came to know that these cathode rays have something which is negatively I'll write it here, it is negatively charged. Later, this negatively charged particle is found to be the electrons. So my dear friends, now we have clear idea about the 5 conclusion or the 5 characteristics of a cathode rays. So now we know this is a negatively charged particle, and that is what? Electron. So we know that electron is the basic fundamental particle of all gas. This may be confusing to you. You may be wondering why it can't be proton or neutron, and that is what I'm going to explain it next. I will erase it here. Electron are the basic particle or fundamental particle of all gases. Why? Because this is a conclusion, you may be heard about it. The reason is this cathode rays experiment or cathode ray tube experiment, if this experiment is done with various different gases, these characteristics or the nature of this cathode rays does not change. It remains same for various type of gases. So the scientists came to a conclusion that electron is the basic or the fundamental particle of all gases. So my dear friends, till now we have studied what is atom, the structure of atom actually. Then we studied about discovery of electron, cathode ray tube, Crookes tube, and we have studied the conditions that J.J. Thomson had in cathode ray tube and the various characteristics of cathode rays. I hope this session is really useful to you. Thanks for spending your time with me. Do subscribe and share this channel with your friends. Thank you. Have a nice day.